In speaking before Great Britain's House of Commons during the early days of World War II in praise of British airmen who successfully repelled the massive German air attacks, Prime Minister Winston Churchill said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." Today, and indeed throughout this month, as we celebrate our history, we can modify and amplify Churchill's phrase and truthfully say, never in the field of human interaction was so much accomplished by so many with so little. On behalf of the NAACP Dekalb County Branch, I warmly greet you, and I thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this engaging Black History program. We thank you, Reverend Dr. Clements, the ministerial staff, the choir, for my favorite song, members, guests, and friends. We're so humbled to be here, and the fact that you gave us this day, we're so forever grateful. With the 2008 election of Senator Barack Obama as President of the United States, some people thought that we as a people had reached the pinnacle of a racial acceptance in this country, and that there was little cause for us to continue to emphasize our history. As someone recently said, we have come a long way, but we still have not arrived. We saw with the election of the first president of color an outpouring of racism, fear, and hatred that had been dormant for decades. Yes, we have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. So it is important that Black History Month continues to be observed and that our glorious and painful history continues to be told. The theme which you have selected for this year's program is so timely. No, we definitely can't stop now. The stakes are indeed too high. With our having accomplished so much with so little, many people of ill will think that we can accomplish everything with nothing. And if we do not remain vigilant, that is exactly what we will have, nothing. History has shown us that in the North, a Black person could become big but could not get too close. This practice resulted in the Northern Blacks having limited housing opportunities and confined to overcrowded, dilapidated housing, which created vast ghettos. In the South, a Black person could get close, accept her housing, but could not get too big. Customs and unjust laws restricted the economic advancement of many Southern Blacks and resulted in wholesale poverty throughout the South, especially in the rural areas. With the sacrifices and the accomplishments made during the modern civil rights era, many advances have been made to improve the living conditions in many of our communities. But we can't stop now. The stakes are too high. Amen. The mentality which supported unjust laws and denied us rights, which should have been ours at birth, still lives on in the hearts of evil men and women throughout this nation. They must never prevail. Their behavior must never again be accepted as the norm. In preparing to speak with you today, I initially thought about telling you about the creative African-American inventors and their vast arrays of inventions, from those who were self-taught to the highly educated. They and their interventions have contributed much to the society. I had planned to tell you about how Blacks have fought bravely in each of this country's wars, from Crispus Attucks, who is widely believed to have been the first person to die in the Boston Massacre during the American Revolution, to the Tuskegee Airmen and other World War II servicemen and women, to the brave men and women serving in the armed forces today. From fighting in foreign wars to make other people free and to encounter freedom denied, to them when they returned to their homeland. These veterans injected a force of steadfast determination and courage into the modern civil rights movement. I even started to mention that the Tuskegee Airmen were derided when they first arrived in Europe. But after establishing a reputation of never losing a bomber that they were escorting, the Tuskegee Airmen became a highly sought out squadron. I started to mention the audacity, the resolve, and the amazing feats of the African American sports figures. I gave much thought to telling you about the bold black and white abolitionists, the civil rights icons, the trailblazing politicians, ambassadors, and the dedicated lawyers, world-renowned and lesser-known African American entertainers, poets, and artists, as well as literary giants, educators, and school founders were initially considered by me to share with you today. Much thought was given to tell you about the many outstanding African Americans who excelled in business and industry. The names of some African American ministers, church and lodge founders, fraternity and sorority founders, and even astronauts were given consideration for my talk today. Once I received the theme for this year's program, however, I noticed that the focus was not on our past, but on our present and our hope for the future. The theme recognizes our present is undeniable tied to our past. Our present condition is the result of what we have done and what has been done to us in the past. Through a sustained and determined struggle, we as a society have come a long way toward dismantling the old Jim Crow laws and discriminatory customs and practice. But we can't stop now. The stakes are too high. We can truthfully say that we have come this far by the providence of God and the determination of courageous and forward-looking leaders. Today, we once again need those types of leaders. Speaking of here and now, let's focus on some of the pressing issues of today. Youth violence, drug abuse, teen pregnancy, inadequate and unaffordable housing, police brutality, inadequate funding of our public schools, inadequate physical and mental health services. And I can go on and on. 50 years ago, these were the same pressing issues. If we continue down this same road, 50 years from now, we will still be dealing with these same pressing issues. We are a wise people. We should not have to eat a whole cow to know that we are eating beef. Due to the fake news and the proliferation of misguided right-wing propaganda being spewed daily from conservative talk radio and Fox News, we look at these conditions as issues, when actually they are effects. On this special day, at this occasion, with your indulgence, I invite you to join me in acknowledging that these conditions are the effects of wholesale poverty and economic injustice. Until we address the issues of gross economic disparity in this country, little change will be made. 50 years ago, Dr. King grappled with the same social conditions. In the 1963 speech, he said, "In our glorious fight for civil rights, we must guard against being fooled by false slogans as right to work. It provides no rights and no works. Its purpose is to destroy labor unions and the freedom of collective bargaining. We demand this fraud be stopped." I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education, and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. Capitalism does not permit an even flow of economic resources. With this system, a small privileged few are rich beyond conscience, and almost all others are doomed to be poor at the same level. That's the way the system works. And since we know that the system will not change the rules, we're going to have to change the system. History will have to record that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition was not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. I call upon all the good people, under the sound of my voice, to acknowledge this truth and help in the fight against this despicable, crippling level of poverty in this land of plenty. More than 50 years ago, Dr. King said, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. If the cruelties of slavery could not stop us, the opposition we now face will surely fail. Because the goal of America is freedom, abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with America's destiny. 50 years after this speech, America is still the only nation, advanced nation, that does not provide adequate health care to all of its citizens, and the health care battle needlessly continues to be fought. Many of the new members recently elected to Congress have the same courage and forward-looking spirit of the leaders of the bygone generation. They recognize that poverty is an overriding issue and are proposing to address it. Make no mistake about it. Billionaires have more money than they can spend in 100 lifetimes. Amen. Yet they clamor for more. A verse of the theme song from the movie Thunderball describes many of them when it says, "He knows the meaning of success. His needs are more, so he gives less. He's called the winner who takes all, and he strikes like Thunderball." No, the NAACP is not against success. It is, though, against the unfair advantage the rich have at the detriment of everyone else. Winston Churchill said, "The truth is incontrovertible. Panic may resent it. Ignorance may deride it. Malice may distort it. But there it is, church. Poverty is the overriding specter of our social deficiencies. Let us not buy into the practice of blaming the poor for being poor and blaming our social ills on the victims while absolving the rich, the unethical politician, and the business community from this complicity. They are not innocent bystanders. And these new congressmen and women recognize this. Former NAACP president and CEO Benjamin Jealous once said, "In a democracy, there are only two types of power. There's organized people and organized money. And organized money only wins when people are not organized." It will be up to us to organize behind these new congressmen and women, because their efforts will be ferociously met with all kinds of opposition from the wealthy. They are on the side of right, and we must support them. In this current political environment, I sometimes hear of our people and say, "I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican. I am neutral." This is not the time to be straddling the fence. While the NAACP is nonpartisan, we do encourage people to support the political party or candidate who represents their self-interest. Jesus had something to say about people who were fence straddlers, those who would not take a stand. The Apostle John quotes Jesus in the book of Revelations 3:15-16, saying, I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. I wish that you were either cold or hot. So, because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. Jesus was declaring that sitting on the fence is prohibited. So you are either for him or against him. Fence straddlers today are either for right or against right, for good or for evil, for truth or for the fake news. The NAACP invites you not to sit on the sidelines or on the fence and but we want you to become active in an organization which is fighting for your rights and your freedoms. As Benjamin Jealous also said, I often tell people I don't care whether they join the NAACP or some other group, but you better join something. The current NAACP president and I are more committal. We want you to join the NAACP. We want you to join the NAACP. As he stated in his recent appeal, Black History Month is a special time to pause and celebrate the trials and triumphs of generations of Black people who have shaped this nation and pushed it closer to becoming the country it claimed to be at its founding. From anti-lynching laws and the desegregation of public schools to voting rights and criminal justice reform, NAACP members have fought for and won monumental victories that made our country better, not only for Black people, but for all our communities. However, the news reminds us each day that now is not the time to rest. There's still so much to fight for, or to keep to keep America moving toward progress. Voting rights are under assault in states across the country. The justice system still only works for some. Black people, regardless of money and fame, can still be arrested, beaten, or worse, for simply existing in certain spaces. Many of our schools and communities remain underfunded and ignored by people in power. To combat these challenges before us today, we have to recognize a long-standing truth. There's strength in numbers. Just as those who came before us harnessed their collective power to create change, we must do the same today. So as we celebrate Black stories and Black excellence this month, I hope you'll take up the challenge and join us. With you as our newest members, we'll be even bigger and bolder in the fight against injustice. I proudly echo President Johnson's appeal and also invite you to join the NAACP. There is an old Chinese proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The future of tomorrow's generation depends on what we do today. Let us not wait another 20 years to plant the trees of justice, equality, prosperity, and hope, because the stakes are too high. Thank you very much.